Today's event is co-organized by the TCS and UNDRR, United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, in celebration of the International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction. I hope today will serve as an opportunity to examine the frontier technologies of China, Japan, and Korea that ensure resilience and mitigate disasters. Let's begin the seminar with opening remarks from the two host organizations. First, Secretary General Ambassador Oh Bo-Kian of TCS. Before joining the TCS last September, she served as Vice President at the Chinese People's Institute of Foreign Affairs. We also have the Chief of the UNDRR Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific, Mr. Marco Toscano Ribalta, joining us from Bangkok, Thailand. Mr. Toscano Ribalta himself is a DRR expert, having taken part in the drafting and negotiating stages of the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction 2015 to 2030. SGO and Mr. Toscano Ribalta, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Sakata, Mr. Marco Toscano Ribalta, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, very good afternoon to all of you. And on behalf of the Trilateral Cooperation Secretariat, TCS, first of all, I would like to welcome you all to our annual event, Inter-Regional Dialogue on Regional Cooperation on this very special day, the International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction. And I wish to express my heartfelt gratitude to the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction for your kindly agreement for co-organizing this webinar under the theme of application of cutting-edge technology for disaster risk reduction in China, Japan, and Korea. Also, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to the National Disaster Reduction Center of China, the Asian Disaster Reduction Center in Japan, and the National Disaster and Safety Research Institute of Korea for your valuable support. Northeast Asia is geographically highly exposed to natural hazards. In recent years, the region has been encountering rising natural disasters threats along with increased extreme weather. With the effective operation of a trilateral cooperative mechanism on disaster management since 2009, China, Japan, and Korea set a strong example on how science and technology could be leveraged to strengthen the disaster response and mitigate the risk to a large extent. To follow up the 5th and 6th Trilateral Ministerial Meeting on Disaster Management, the TCS recently published a casebook, Trilateral Best Practice Applications for Technology and Reducing Disaster Risks in China, Japan, and Korea. I happen to have this handbook in my hand. I want to show it to you. And with this, publication actually is with the support of UNDRR and ministries and institutes of the 3 countries. And I wish such a collection of accumulated good practices will not only help China, Japan, and Korea to learn from each other, but also inspire and empower the world beyond to apply the best knowledge and strengthen their innovative capability to address outstanding challenges of natural disaster. Ladies and gentlemen, this year marks the 10th anniversary of the establishment of TCS. Entering the new decade of development, we shall spare no efforts to strengthen the regional cooperation on disaster risk reduction so as to contribute our part for a better implementation of the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction 2015 to 2030. With this webinar as a starting point, We would also like to extend our cooperation with governments, committees, communities, and practitioners around the world and the modality of trilateral plus X, so as to help the hazard vulnerable countries to develop better ways of disaster management. And I wish this webinar a full success. Thank you very much.
Mr. Toscano Rivalta, please.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much for giving me the floor. Your Excellency, Ambassador Ubokian, Secretary General of the Trilateral Cooperation Secretariat, Ms. Sakata Natsuko, the Deputy Secretary General, Excellencies and distinguished participants, it is really our honor to be co-organizing this webinar with the Trilateral Cooperation Secretariat on the occasion of the International Day for Disaster Risk Reductions. We really treasure this partnership. Science, technology and innovations are critical in accelerating all aspects of disaster risk reduction, from furthering our understanding of risk to facilitating informed decision-making and developing new ways of enhancing resilience. The Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction recognizes this and calls for cooperation among scientific and technical communities to enhance the science policy interface for effective disaster risk management. The People's Republic of China, Japan, and the Republic of Korea are regarded as most innovative countries in applying science and technology towards decision-making. That is why we have been privileged to have had the opportunity to work with the Secretariat on our joint publication, highlighting best practices in this area of disaster risk reduction. This collaboration, which includes today's event, has allowed the sharing of those practices and lessons with countries across the region and the world. The sharing of knowledge, technical expertise, the provision of financial support, and the formulation of transboundary plans, just to mention a few, are all aspects of international cooperation in line with the Sendai Framework. This cooperation is essential if we are to reduce the global losses from disasters, as no one country can address on their own all climate and disaster risk, including those from biological hazards. As the UN Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, said in his message for the International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction, effective risk reduction relies on international cooperation and global solidarity. This is about ensuring fair and equitable access to vaccines to everyone, everywhere, dramatically increasing funding and support for climate change adaptations and resilience building, thus delivering on the Sendai Framework. On this International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction, let us reaffirm our commitment to taking international cooperation to the next level. Only together we can make true progress toward a safer and more resilient world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, SGO and Mr. Toscano Ribalta, for your good wishes. I agree that this event will be beneficial to anyone engaged in the DRR arena, and hopefully this is only the start of a deeper and more comprehensive cooperation in this field. Now, before introducing our first speaker, may I ask all of the speakers and discussants to make sure your camera is on for a virtual group photo. I'm joining SGO, and are you ready?
Okay, so can I have a big smile, everybody? Oh, perfect. Thank you, it's done. Thanks.
Great. So now let's go off to our first speaker. Ms. Luo Weyer is from the Airborne Remote Sensing Application Department of the National Disaster Reduction Center of China. Today, she'll give us a presentation on the unmanned aerial vehicle technology and application in disaster emergency management. Ms. Luo, you have 15 minutes, please.
Oh, yes. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Luo Wei from National Disaster Reduction Center in Ministry of Emergency Management in China. Today, I will share the topic about the UAV technology and its application in disaster emergency management. Next, please. My presentation can be divided into 8 parts. Firstly, I will introduce MEM and NDRCC in China, and then I will talk about unmanned aerial system and drones, as well as their applications in DRR. Thirdly, National UAV Emergency Monitoring Network, as well as Data Processing and Analyzing Center will be demonstrated in the next 2 parts. Apart from that, Shuicheng landslide occurred in China in 2018 will be shown as a case for UAV remote sensing monitoring and data processing and analysis. Finally, lessons learned from UAV application in DRM and future challenges will be discussed at the end of this presentation. Next, please. Ministry of Emergency Management, also called MEM, was established in April of 2018 in Beijing, the capital of China, whose obligation is to improve national emergency management capabilities and levels, increase disaster prevention, reduction, relief, and recovery ability, as well as ensure residents' lives and property safety and social stability. In the daily work, MEM draws up national emergency plans for preparation and guides local departments in emergency response and rehearsal. During the disaster relief stage, MEM coordinates and dispatches the emergency forces and supplies, organizes the rescue and reconstruction for production safety and natural disasters, undertakes the work of the state HQ for major disasters. Next, please. NDRCC was established in 2002 and put into operation in 2003, with a satellite application center for disaster reduction added in 2009, which was transferred to the MEM in 2018. Generally, NDRCC undertakes the function of natural disaster risk monitoring and early warning, risk assessment, satellite emergency applications, data information management, research on natural disaster science, technology, regulations, and standards, as well as international cooperation, and assumes the role of the National Comprehensive Risk Monitoring and Early Warning Center for Natural Disasters and Space Technology Application Center for Disaster Reduction. NDRCC aims to build 3C and 2W, which means Information Exchange Center, Technology Service Center, Decision-Making Support Center, Exchange and Cooperation Windows, and Publicity and Education Windows specifically. Next, please. Unmanned aircraft system, also called the drone or UAV, is an aircraft controlled from the ground operator instead of the human pilot on board. UAV is compressed by aircraft, ground control system, communication link, and other components. Aircraft is made up by platform, payload, flight control system, power, electrical system, and so on. Ground control system is made up by display system and control system, while communication link is made up by onboard and ground link device. Additionally, there are launch and landing as well as storage equipment as well. Next, please. The next page. From the industrial perspective, UAV can be applied in the area of public safety, construction, infrastructure, energy, agriculture, media, and so on. Next, please. From the industrial perspective, for those applications mentioned above, UAV is able to obtain low altitude and high resolution image with relatively low cost, simple operation, quick response, and a nationwide deployment compared with manned aircraft. And it is less affected by weather, such as cloudy, windy, and rainy, since it is operated below the cloud. Next, please. Disaster management circle can be divided into 4 stages, including prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery. During this circle, UAV technology plays an important role in DRM. Before the disaster, geospatial data, disaster risk monitoring models, and early warning systems for different hazards are obtained and processed to prevent the community from disasters. During the disaster monitoring and risk assessment by using UAV technologies are the most important method, which includes hazard factor monitoring, exposure monitoring, vulnerability monitoring, rapid assessment, field investigation, disaster relief, and some things like that. After the disaster, comprehensive loss assessment and disaster investigation will be conducted to recovery and reconstruction, while UAV is able to help governments to select reconstruction or relocation site, as well as monitor the reconstruction progress of infrastructure and services restoration. Next, please. Since the establishment of NDRCC, the space, sky, ground monitoring system has been applied in some complex and dangerous things. To realize the aims of the first-time response, low altitude, high precision monitoring method, and continuous large-scale monitoring of MEM. Here is our emergency management informatization system development strategy framework. Satellites, mid to high altitude aircraft, and UAVs are used to obtain oblique photography, as well as disaster information and data. At the same time, three-dimensional model reconstruction and simulation will be created to assist the emergency management leader for decision-making. During this stage, we are able to achieve the emergency three-dimensional reconstruction of disaster area at the rate of 1 to 3 hours per 20 square kilometers. Next page, please. This is about our current construction work of UAV monitoring business system. The aerial remote sensing operation system is based on the one network, one center, and two platforms, including UAV cloud platform, data processing and disaster information extraction center, and online product service platform. Under the frame of disaster emergency management, we are able to achieve professional and fast data acquisition, efficient and automatic data processing and analysis, precise and intelligent information extraction technology, as well as provide diverse and powerful product service. Next, please. In NDRCC, the business mode of UAV application is coordinate and dispatch UAV firstly to obtain flight data immediately once the natural disaster occurred. Next, on-site and centralized 2 or 3-dimensional data will be processed and analyzed for later utilization. Thirdly, important information, including houses, roads, and farmlands, will be extracted automatically for decision-making of MEM. Finally, WebGIS-based product service will be published for decision makers with different terminals, such as computer, iPad, and smartphones. Next, please. Next page. Yeah. In 2010, Airborne Remote Sensing Department established the cooperation mechanism for UAV monitoring in emergency response to major disasters in NDRCC. by purchasing from the government and using social forces to build an UAV emergency observation network. This cooperation mechanism could achieve continuous observation capability and cover high-risk area of disasters by using public-private partnerships mode. Up to now, there are 18 collaborative companies and more than 100 professional UAV teams were added into this mechanism. We are able to dispatch UAV teams to disaster site as soon as possible. 6 hours emergency response in the central and east China, and 24 hours emergency response in the remote western regions. Additionally, we have also built a UAV emergency monitoring cloud platform, which was launched in March of this year to achieve real-time monitoring, unified scheduling, flight monitoring, and real-time data backhaul. Here is the operation page of our UAV cloud platform. Through this website, it is easy to control the entire process of disaster emergency management and solve the problems of capital and manpower shortage. Next, please. Apart from the UAV cloud platform, we built a data processing and analysis center to convert the UAV raw data to 2 or 3-dimensional data products, and then to disaster informational products eventually. This data center contains the disaster scene rapid processing system, high-performance aviation data processing system, and deep learning intelligent information extraction system specifically. Currently, we are able to achieve the business-oriented house extraction and come to the transformation stage of the road network, farmland, and damaged crops. Next, please. After data processing and analysis and information extraction, collaborative judgment platform will adopt expert opinions to ensure the diversification of product services. The maps and reports with monitoring and evaluation result contained will be sent to MEM for decision making and disaster assessment, no matter places, time, and devices. Next, please. Here are some examples of UAV data processing and analysis, such as using mask RCN to segment building outline from the initial position detection. Next, please. Using smart 3D photo mode, street factory, pixel 4D, and so on to conduct building models. Next, please. Transferring building extraction and damage assessment to 3-dimensional models. Next, please. Next page. And then just click the screen. Yeah. Publishing 2 or 3-dimensional product service based on WebGIS and so on. Next page. On July 23rd, 2019, a sudden landslide. Next page. A sudden landslide occurred in Liupanshui, Guizhou province in China. The terrain on site was fluctuated, and the broken surface was unstable. The buildings were totally destroyed and buried, which was difficult to estimate the original position, causing heavy pressure for rescue operations. Next day, the UAV teams conduct the oblique aerial photography, covering approximately 1.7 square kilometers of the damaged area and the affected places around. After the flight missions were completed, the front UAV teams and the rear support teams coordinated immediately to process and analyze data. The operation focused on the damaged houses and the potential possibility of the secondary landslide. The three-dimensional model of the landslide and its secondary disaster risk assessment were published for decision-making. This emergency response provided the strong information support for the fire brigade to know about the situation and allocate the rescue forces accurately. Next, please. Next, please. The last part is about the experiences and challenges. Firstly, some local related departments have not joined our business chain. The construction of UAV monitoring networks lacks the full support of local governments in terms of policies, funds, and manpower. Secondly, we need to promote the cooperative mechanism, build a UAV emergency monitoring and response system, and gradually control the entire process of disaster emergency management. Apart from that, the high-performance data processing center is able to solve the problems of capital and manpower shortage. For the future, the challenges mainly include the following two aspects. The first one is rapid acquisition of data. The disaster occurs widely and unpredictably, and the adverse weather conditions, such as raining, strong winds, and the night, will affect rescue work. Therefore, it is necessary to establish a cooperative relationship with local units and social UAV teams to carry out the construction and operation of this mechanism. The other challenge is quick data processing and analysis ability. This process requires large storage and high performance of computers, which is difficult for the mobile terminal on-site to meet this demand. Therefore, we need to build a data processing center to ensure its efficiency. Yeah, my presentation is finished. Thanks for your listening.
Thank you very much, Ms. Luo, and it's so comprehensive. And it's clear that the UAV technology is full of potentials, and you are envisioning the future of disaster management. So next, I'd like to invite Dr. Ikeda Makoto from the Asian Disaster Reduction Center of Japan to speak. As an expert in disaster resilience and sustainability rehabilitation, he will present some case studies of DRR technology application in Japan. Dr. Ikeda, please, you have 15 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. So can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so let me start my presentation. So title is, as he mentioned, application of DRR technology for reducing disaster risks. Next, please. So in our field, in the disaster risk reduction field, we have one famous concept like this. So name is disaster management cycles. So there is 4 kinds of the phases: response phase, and rehabilitation and reconstruction phase, prevention and mitigation phase, and the preparedness phase. So as you know very much, there are many kinds of DRR activities. So today, I would like to pick up some of the activities related to the DRR technology for reducing risks. Next, please. So today, I prepared the 3 kind of case studies like this. Next, please. So first topic is regarding lead relief image map. Innovation to 3D visualization. Okay, next, please. Okay, so in case of disaster, so we have to confirm the accurate disaster affected area as soon as possible. So for instance, we have a technology like aerial photograph and satellite images. However, it's sometimes too difficult to understand the accurate disaster affected area, especially for common peoples. And also we have another mapping, name is contour map. So contour map is including a lot of information such as ground surface, especially in flat surface and steep slope. So however, this is also, it is slightly difficult to understand the disaster affected area for common peoples. So next, please. So according to the G's background, so one of the famous aerial survey private company name is Asian Air Survey. They developed the new map concept. Name is RRIM, Red Relief Image Map, RRIM in short. So RRIM is it's very easy to understand to the ground information for common peoples. So next, please. So let me introduce the some of the good practice of RRIM. So this is this photo shows the ancient tombs in Japan. So maybe as you know very much, ancient tombs is just for like graves for past famous persons such as historical governor or mayor or king or princess or prince, something like that. So this ancient tombs was developed from 3rd century to 7th centuries. So according to the latest research, so in Japan, now we have more than 116,000 ancient tombs in Japan. So, but as you can see, the almost ancient tombs was covered by many forests. Unfortunately, we cannot find the correct ground surface. However, so RRIM is make it possible to confirm the accurate surface information. Okay, next, please. Of course, RRIM is useful for DRR field. This is one of the major active volcano in Japan. Name is Mount Miyake-jima. So Mount Miyake-jima have been erupting almost every year, including small scale eruption, large scale eruptions. So the information from the RRIM is a support for the people's evacuations. Okay, next, please. This is a case of the flood by using RRIM. So in case of the large scale flood or heavy rainings, RRIM technology can make a clear and disaster affected information of river basin and its banks. Next, please. Okay, I would like to skip. Next, please. So this is in case of a landslide. This landslide is occurred that the Kumamoto earthquake hit in April 2016 in Kumamoto Prefecture of Kyushu Island. So moment of magnitude was 7.0. So left one is the aerial photograph. Maybe you can find small information about the landslide, but so in the right picture, this is RRIM data. So maybe you can find the debris, landslide flows and extent of damage. Okay, next, please. So by using these data, so RRIM make possible to develop the landslide hazard map. It's including risk information. Okay, next, please. So next topic is communication DRR technology. Name is relay by smartphone. Next, please. So as you know very much, in 2011, we had a large-scale tragic disaster named the Tohoku earthquake and tsunami. Okay, next, please. So at that time, we had a lot of the lifeline damage, such as stopping water, electronic, and gas, something like that. Of course, we had communication. We had this communication of landline and cellular phone. So as you can see, this figure shows the this communication information as of 13 March. It was 2 days later of earthquake and tsunami. Okay, next please. So according to the this background, Tohoku University and one of major private company name is Kozo Keikaku Engineering. So they developed the new communication tools, name is relay by smartphone, like this. So relay by smartphone is make it possible to communicate with each people's without internet-based station. So that means that if disaster happen, if we have this communication, disconnected, so we can communicate with each other by using our smartphone. Okay, next please. And Tohoku University and Kozo Keikaku Engineering had one demonstration of relay by smartphone in Kochi Prefecture. Why in Kochi Prefecture? So this is also, you know, very much. So Japanese government, so they predict the large-scale earthquake and tsunami will be hitting Japan within coming next 13 years. Namely, the Nankai Trough earthquake. So the occurrence is 17 to 80%. Magnitude is 8 to 9. So if this disaster happens, the big, large-scale tsunami will be hit in Kochi Prefecture. As you can see the above figures. So around the 13 or 34 meter tsunami will be hit in Kochi Prefecture. This is the worst case in Japan. So next, please. So according to the G's background, so Kozo Keikaku Engineering had demonstrations, collaborate with local government and resident peoples. Maybe as you can see. Okay, next please. Last topic is about Gabion. So next please. So before my explanation about the Gabions, so I would like to introduce the one major research institution, name is NIEDO, National Research Institution for Earth Science and Disaster Resilience. So NIEDO has been promoting the Gabion project, not only in Japan, but also other Asia countries. So NIEDO have many offices in Hyogo Prefecture and Ibaraki Prefecture. They also have a full-scale earthquake simulator. Okay, next please. So Gabion, so we can call in Japanese Jakago. So original technology is coming from Sichuan in China. So at the 3rd century BC. So after that, after a while, this technology was transferred to and to introduced to in Japan at the 316 to the 418 AD. So characteristic of a Gabion is environmentally friendly disaster resilience technology. That means it's easy to transfer to any other Asian countries. Okay, next please. So NIEDO, they tried to they had a research project in Nepal and in Japan, what kind of the Gabion were developed. So they confirmed many kind of the gabion is developed in mountain and the urban and the coastal area, as you can see. Okay, next please. So NIEDO is tried to consider the more effective the gabion technology and make design manuals by using their own full-scale shake table test, as you can see. So most important, important merit of a gabion is a low technology and low cost and low utilization. So this means, as I mentioned before, it's easy to transfer to the other Asian country. Okay, thank you very much. That is my presentation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ikeda. You have demonstrated quite a comprehensive overview of what the Japanese DRR experts are deeply invested in right now. Now, the last presenter for our session today is Mr. Cho Si-boem, research officer at the National Disaster and Safety Research Institute, currently serving as a member of the Korean delegation to the International Organization for Standardization in the field of unmanned aircraft systems. Today, he will showcase, for the first time ever, Korea's public-private partnered emergency drone operation team for disaster response. So Mr. Cho, please, 15 minutes.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sibon, and I work at the National Disaster Management. I will make one presentation on a case of the emergency drone operation team response disaster. Our research institute has been operating 14 to hazard and support situation management. With 10 drones. Since 2000, our research 76 on-site operation. When our large scale it becomes our investigated because of disaster and support situation management. In more arrive at the scene. It's practically impossible to respond quickly.
May I interrupt, Mr. Cho? I'm so sorry to interrupt. Mr. Cho, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but could you kindly be a little bit closer to the mic, please?
Yes, in order incredible limitation, we began our research plan in 2016 and back upon plans in 2009. Next, please. Recently, as the number of has increased in Korea, a safety drone making a national drone cooperation. The technological development of drones and of operation personnel in the where the government cooperate in the disaster. To establish a regional disaster response system. High relation system between the public and the government. Next, please. The the existing disaster information collect information with site patrols and video report. Based on the autonomy of movement, drones have the advantage of being able to access and to objectively drift the situation of the site by using aerial. Drones have active cluster potential forest fire monitoring quarantine. However, there are difficult conditions for the governance possible of operate drones. However, there are difficult conditions for the government to exclusively operate drones. As disaster management officials are avoiding various tasks such as just maintenance, education, training, and accidentally tied for drone operation currently. There are many difficulties in using drones for disaster management. Next, please. Why is it necessary for cooperation between and the people who operate drones in disaster management fine? The Seoul accident on April 16, 2014 killed 304 people and the very sick. Many other disasters such as repeated typhoons, floods, and slide, forest fires, explosions. The response process is your problem with the national disaster management system in such a large continually present through the media and research. We can to think that the success or failure factor of disaster response is and sharing of this information. Disaster actions are especially dangerous since their occurrence cannot be predicted. If there are drone experts living near the disaster site, will there be any change in disaster management? The research was conducted with the idea of can we project even 1% more from disaster? Arrive at the same method with the management option and we use the real time. Information for national disaster management using drones instead of the existing document-oriented situation report. Next, please. We started a survey on drone technology and private organization in 2015 and planned ideas in 2017. After that, in 2018, we proposed 89 private drone experts which operated unexpectedly in the situation of typhoon Solik to verify the possibility of emergency operation of drones in public-private cooperation. After that, in 2009, a budget was scheduled for a one-year unit study, and the existing human experts were expanded to 300, and the was confirmed to test in various disaster situations such as typhoon in safe terrain. Then, what kind of people made the drone emergency operation team? Person who has obtained professional qualification and own his own drone and who has been recognized by the regional leader. The regional head is a person who has acquired a qualification of a guidance pilot or higher and effective management training annually. A guidance pilot review of experience in accordance with the aviation. There are about 630 drone practical evaluation instructor in Korea. And about a third of them are working with the head of the drone emergency operations team. Second, those who can donate his or her talent in other words, these are volunteers who receive no pay. A member of the drone emergency operations team wanted to do assist securing the safety of the own neighbors disaster by donating their talent. This started only idea because it was impossible to obtain any research funding until 2019, when the first of was released. In order to confirm their intention to participate in this capabilities of survey with 250 guidance safety management training. As a result of the 53% said they will supply help, those in their 40s account for 43% of the group and they had their own plan. Based on this autonomous emergency operation team system was established in this system. In the event of the disaster, the autonomous operation team uploads data captured on site to the map-based system. So the disaster management agency can better understand the situation. In addition, the resource information of the experts can be checked in this system. This system makes it possible to more effectively utilize resources in pinpointing the location of members. Has the qualification number where the software search code is used. Next. The operation system of the drone emergency operation team was established based on the typhoon demonstration. Able to operate with under conditions where mid-level typhoon was moving into the area and the headquarters was operating. After Primarily, the operation started of the drone operation team through the emergency contact network. A regional price third was formed. At the time of the fight network, the damage around the attacked regional area was photographed with smartphones. And the extent of damage identified and said, this drone operation began. And on-site activities were carried out by producing on-site users, verifying the location and extent of damage and transmitting information to the system. But the emergency operation team designated a group leader for each region across the country and create a large number of team members to lead under the group leader to collect damage information that corresponding area. In addition, an overall manager with appointed two director group heads of each region across the country, and the manager to effective and systematic activities by estimating drone operation and information collection union. However, this identified damages, location, and delivered it to overall manager. And supported on-site drone operation through the system to support administration. This is obtaining drone flight permits across the country. Next, please. The main activity case of the drone emergency responding to damage from typhoon, Danas, Lingning, and Mita, medium-sized typhoon that was great damage to Korea in 2019. During Typhoon 460, drone operators were active when 438 cases of field information were collected. In particular, the population system between the drone emergency operation team, the police and local government centers and the region contributed to public safety activities. Going beyond the normal disaster activities to include suspects and the elderly with dementia disaster response training. And support the arrest of illegal drones and nuclear power plant. As a result of achievement, the project was selected as an excellent example of government innovation by the Ministry of Interior area and state and emergency operation team recognized. Also such as commendations from the local police. In particular, the search for the suspected of committing suicide was made at the request of the police. And emergency drone operation team over a drone operator succeeded the riverside. And then found the disease with the drone within 2 days and delivered the disease to the family. This station deals with the operation process of our drone emergency operation team in a typhoon damage situation. This case examines the response situation of Typhoon Solik in 2019. First, as the typhoon in South Korean area, a drone emergency team was called into action. Then the situation around the typhoon was assessed for further the typhoon could travel. Second, when the typhoon made landfall and serious damage occurred, the situation where the damage occurred was recorded with smartphone and the video was shared and quickly identify the severe damage area. Third, as the typhoon became extinct, the information identified by the drone emergency operation team. In the previous situation and the damages area investigated by the local government were shared with the overall management group. Leaders of the drone emergency operation team and the drone emergency operation team worked by region to acquire damage and promptly replace it with the system. In general, it took less than 15 minutes for drones to film on site and acquire the information to one of the hottest hit areas by the typhoon is Jeju Island, which is located in the southwest part of Korea. The route of the large beam was turned away, making it impossible to visually judge damage from ground. In the case of the breakwater at limit port in Jeju Island, the maximum wave height of 50 meters is the design standard of 8 meters over 50 frequency. 76 meters of wave despairing block and including the pier section were lost. It was a situation in which bike and human access were impossible due to loss of the brake head. In order to next please. In order for the public-private cooperation drone emergency operation team, which was carried out primarily to be applied effectively in the disaster field, which was that expert around the disaster drone operation are necessary. Accordingly, basis on the drone emergency operation manual and practical cases, command was given and advice received twice in form of discussion with 21 experts in 9 fields such as safety, aviation, surveying, insurance, and flash. In this way, operational problems were gradually overcome. Next, please. The main contents of the are as follows. First, for the content estimated to operate this system in including disaster response capacity and applying practical work continuous research using disaster budget. Invest in personal electrification. Second, it is necessary to improve identification and improve legal and institutional treatment for effective operation and support of private drone operators. Next, please. What change will be made in the future? Until now, we have relied on but in the future, it is expected that we will be able to effectively apply the ground and with all this situation in attack location. It is also possible to provide effective disaster management through quantitative analysis rather than simply taking video and post by drones. The scalability of the drone emergency operation system, in which the government and the people cooperate, is being judged and evaluated to be of great help not only in natural disaster, but also in such as firefighting and police work and in enhancement of public safety. Next, please. This is a practical example of how disaster management changes. There was a large-scale forest fire in Yeongdong-gun, Chungcheongbuk-do. Helicopter was flying water to extinguish the fire, but what was being just one area included two fire crews. Image please. Image please. were transferring in the site. In fact, this plan was made to the wildfire by sharing ground information with the helicopter fire. At the contract made accurate adjustment to the draft rate. Finally, this case is the result of collaboration between the government and citizens for sharing the safety of our neighbor states.
Mr. Cho completed?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Cho. Due to some technical issues, we might have missed your valuable words, some of your valuable words, but still your presentation paper speaks a lot. And I believe that it's quite full of wisdom and practical measures mapped out of the public-private partnership. Thank you very much. Now, I would like to pass the mic to Professor Rajiv Shah to follow up on the presentations we just heard. Professor Shah is professor at Keio University with a specialization in disaster and environmental management. He also serves as chair of the Asia Pacific Science, Technology, and Academia Advisory Group. Professor Shah, we welcome your insights and feedback.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. This is a great honor and pleasure to listen to these excellent sets of presentation. I congratulate Trilateral Cooperation Secretariat for successful completion of 10 years, and also to the Secretariat as well as UNDRR for bringing this excellent compilation of innovation in disaster risk reduction. I downloaded the document and had a chance to look at this. This is really, really very useful document, not only for the 3 countries, but for globally. 10 years back, I think 2011 was a very, very important year. I mean, I heard that 2011 was your Secretariat establishment as well, but also in the field of disaster risk reduction, the East Japan earthquake and tsunami, it was one of the major trigger of major changes in the different aspects of disaster risk reduction, not only in Japan, but globally. And let me highlight a few points, especially also picking up some of the key issues our esteemed presenters has also pointed out. I think that we have seen a major change in the role of academia in progressing the science technology agenda. From the advisory role, it is becoming more as a co-designer, working with the government, working with the private sector, civil society, etc. So we used to talk about the last mile connectivity, but I think we are now changing the last mile to the first mile and try to understand the community's needs and priorities. And that is becoming the starting point of innovation. Some of the examples which are presented in the compilation, I think it very clearly explain about the importance of co-design to co-delivery of innovation, understanding communities' needs and priorities. So that's my point number 1. Point number 2 is, I think all the 3 countries, China, Japan, and Korea, they are leaders not only on the conventional technologies, but also the emerging technology. We just heard a very classic example of use of drones. And when we talk about the emerging technologies, we need to remember that today's emerging technologies are tomorrow's essential technology. And some of the, although we call this emerging technology, but some of these technologies are already being used in different aspects of disaster risk reduction. And I think that when we have this type of emerging or disruptive technology, it is not only just it is not only important to develop the technology itself, but also develop a governance system and the capacities. And I think all the 3 countries have excellent examples for how to make a proper governance systems of this type of new technologies. And I'm very confident that these particular lessons from China, Japan, Korea, it will be extremely useful for different parts of the world, especially for the emerging technology, as well as the conventional technology in the disaster risk reduction. The third point is on this private sector. We also heard very important presentations. We also heard from Japan, the involvement of the private sector and the university partnership. I think I will say maybe 15, 20 years back, when we used to talk about the private sector, it was more the insurance and reinsurance companies we were talking about. But now we see many different types of products, many different types of services which are coming up in the disaster risk reduction. And we have also like heat resistant paint, water battery for early warning system, different sets of products for earthquake safety, water recycling for the drought prone area, and so on. I feel that the disaster field is possibly still 10 to 15 years behind the environment field in this, the involvement of the private sector, because the environment field is very fortunate to have the green color. So it's very easy to correlate the green technology, the green building. But for disaster risk reduction, it's very difficult to define disaster technology with one color. So I usually use the rainbow color, like the combination of all different colors to define the disaster technologies. But I think that we can learn possibly quite a bit from the environment field and also the broader umbrella of the sustainable development. And under that broader umbrella of sustainable development, the environment field, climate change, disaster risk reduction, I think this private sector involvement is getting more and more prominent. And the private sectors are finding a big market also gradually in the disaster risk reduction. And that's a very, very significant change. And some of the examples which we heard actually emphasize that particular point. I'd like to also point out a couple of other issues. One is the open data and open governance. I think this is also becoming a very new trend with the complex risk landscape of increasing cascading or complex or compound disaster. I think it's becoming very, very important that how we address the different disasters through systemic risk approach. And for that, the open data becomes very important. Very recently in Japan, we had a landslide in Atami in the Shizuoka prefecture. And it shows a very classic example of open point cloud data by the Shizuoka prefecture, which was an open data almost 3 years back. And that particular data has been used very quickly by a set of tech companies and the prefecture to make the first damage estimation map within just 5 to 6 hours of the event. Earlier, it used to take long, means at least 1 month or a few weeks to do that type of analysis. And that particular analysis has been also used for the decision making. So I think there are plenty of examples of this type of open data usage, and more we use the open data and open governance for the disaster risk reduction, I think the whole technology drive becomes very, very important. And my last point is the youth entrepreneurship in disaster risk reduction. That is possibly a future, and this is very close to my heart. I always try to emphasize that one, that there are plenty of new innovations in disaster risk reduction, and we need to engage these young professionals, students from China, Japan, Korea, but also young professionals and students from other countries. And this is actually a sort of request or a proposal to the Secretariat. I know that you have an youth ambassador or young ambassador programs involving these 3 countries, students and so on. So possibly we can think about some sort of incubation with different universities where these 3 country students can also collaborate beyond the 3 countries, some other countries. And now with this online system, it's much easier to make different types of online hackathon or different types of ideathon. I think I personally work very closely with many universities in China, like Sichuan University or Beijing Normal University or Yonsei University in Korea. And I have seen that huge potential among these bright young students. So if we can really involve them into a more proactive science technology innovation process, and then with a mentorship with the academia, but also a mentorship from the business sector, I think, because we have seen also very good collaboration between the private sector, academia, and government, and also possibly from the civil society as well. So I think that this will surely take a new trend in next 10 years. And that's my very strong hope and wish that this youth entrepreneurship development in the field of disaster risk reduction can really make a breakthrough, not only for this region, not only for these 3 countries, but for the whole world. So I will end my remarks here. So thank you very much for your kind listening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Shaw. And now I'd like to invite our speakers again to make some response to Professor Shaw. So Ms. Luo, Dr. Ikeda, Mr. Cho, anybody would like to make some feedback comment to Professor Shaw's remarks? Could you raise hands if you have comments?
I don't have any specific comment, but as Dr. Rajiv mentioned, the strengths network between university students is quite important for considering next DRR activities. Okay, thank you very much.
Madam Luo?
Thank you very much for your comments.
What about Mr. Cho? Anything to add to his comment? Anything?
It's okay.
Great. So on behalf of the audience, may I ask one question? I'm inclined to ask one question to Professor Shaw. Do you have any advice for countries and communities on how to benefit from available international or regional cooperation on technology for DRR? It might be somewhat overlapping with those your previous comments, but still, we need your blessing. Will you?
Thank you very much, Sakata-san. That there are different ways. I can't say that there is only one specific ways of cooperation or being beneficial of the science technology innovation. Possibly, we must remember that science is not just by the scientist only. So everybody, whoever uses science, especially in the disaster risk reduction, become a very important actor of that. So how we actually involve different partnership, it's not only just the university professor. We need to learn from the private sector. We need to learn from the civil society, of course, from the local and national government. We need to work very closely with the media. That's a very, very important part, that how we communicate properly the science and technology part. I think that becomes very, very important. So the partnership in science and technology is one of the critical aspects in the disaster risk reduction. And possibly another important thing is that we need to, many times still, we talk about our traditional disciplines. Like I am an earthquake specialist, I am a tsunami specialist, I am a typhoon specialist, like that. But I think those deep disciplines are very, very important. And I'm sure that like all the 3 countries here are extremely, extremely well positioned to have a very good research on their respective universities, respective research institutions. But I think the cross-cutting of different disciplines also becomes very, very important. So how we can have a more transdisciplinary, multidisciplinary collaboration. It's not only just the engineer or scientist, but we also need economists, we also need social scientists, we also need urban planner, geographer, architect. So different types of disciplines, I think, is a very, very important. So one is that partnership issue, and another one is the transdisciplinarity. I think that becomes very, very important to bring science technology to the people and community. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. And I want to check again with our 3 speakers. Would you like to add your final comments in response to Professor Shaw? No? Your face is saying no. Okay, so now I'm afraid to say our time is really running out. And so I'd better stop all here, although I feel like we could go on for hours. First of all, a huge appreciation to all our panelists who helped make today's webinar a reality. And I'd like to thank all the audience who joined us from all around the world today as well. Since joining the TCS as Deputy Secretary General, it's become clearer to me than ever that some challenges that we face call for collective strategy making, and the field of disaster management and disaster risk reduction certainly falls into that category. As today's presentations demonstrated, each of CJK countries is dedicating significant resources to advancing their disaster management systems through technology and innovation. Ample practical experiences and lessons learned are being collected by each country. But what if we were to enhance cooperation among scientific and technological communities and pull those wisdom together? What if we were to learn from not only within, but also beyond the borders? The impact of information sharing will not be an additive one. It will be exponential. This joint webinar was the UNDRR and the TCS attempt at providing an opportunity for mutual learning on advanced disaster management systems. And I think our discussion today hinted what possibilities would lie in such a cooperation. The exchange of successes and difficulties through trilateral cooperation would accelerate the use of technologies in disaster risk reduction and resilience. This in turn then could serve to propel the disaster risk management capacity of developing countries, which means a more resilient, safer globe for anyone. I'd like to conclude here our inter-regional dialogue on regional cooperation. And for anyone who's interested, we have a special website dedicated to today's seminar where you can access all the presentation materials and contact information of our speakers. So please check it out. I hope today is the beginning of something that positively changes the DRR community around the world. Once again, a huge round of applause to everyone on stage, and hope you all have a lovely Thursday afternoon. Bye-bye.
May I turn off video?